on this season. Jerry Ryan coming up in one moment. Yes, and this will be the last time we meet for a while as the NBA season is in the books. The Denver Nuggets are world champs. Jerry, Rhino, gentlemen, good to see you. And Jerry, you and I were just talking a minute ago. We are thrilled for a man that we know and got to know when he was with Sacramento, Michael Malone. I mean, I don't know what else you can say other than congratulations.
Yeah, just a marvelous job he's done there all the time he's been there. He's a coach's coach. I always thought, I don't think the Kings have ever had a coach, so enthusiastic and hardworking. I mean, that guy took it to new levels, and you see it there in Denver. The team really has taken his personality, and honestly, I've been about as nervous during this series as I was if the Kings were playing because of Michael.
Yeah, Ryan, what do you take from that 5-game series and the win by Denver?
Just how dominant Denver is in terms of the system they run, the leadership from top to bottom. I mean, they had every guy that they needed to have, whether it was in the starting five or coming off the bench, step up at the right times. So just incredible win, about time, many would say, with Jokic, but very happy for Mike Malone. I mean, what an incredible coach and somebody that keeps those guys focused all the time.
Jerry, Michael obviously grew up in a basketball family. His dad, Brendan, longtime assistant coach, brief head coach. But how much do you see of Michael and Brendan? Did you get to know Brendan well much during your career? I know he was with Sacramento for that brief period of time and then left before the season began. But did you have any type of friendship with Brendan Malone?
Yeah, I knew Brendan very well. Our paths crossed a lot over the years. And like you say, just a marvelous coaching career. Obviously got with a bad team as a head coach, and you don't win if you don't have players. But, he was with the championship Pistons teams and a key guy. It's just just like, you see a lot of Michael in him, Brendan, straight shooter. He's going to tell you what he thought, and you could like it, lump it or dump it, but always nothing but respect.
When you say, Jerry, that you don't win without good players, is that based on experience, or did someone tell you that?
I found that early in life, even before the NBA, and the NBA is the ultimate example of that.
Right.
You can kind of trick it in college and different things sometimes with scheduling and a few things, but in the NBA, if you don't have some top level players, you're not going to win.
Now, even in college, so you're telling me when you had Bob McAdoo and Footsie Walker on your team, it made you a better coach? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, yeah, it made, I slept like a baby most of the time. So, you don't always have it to where you're just way better than everybody. And of course, I had some years where we weren't way better than everybody, even though knew we could win most of them.
Oh my gosh. Ryan, Nikola Jokic, where's he on the greatness of players right now in the NBA? Because people in our profession and fans, they always like to talk about, who's the best player in the league? Who's the best player in the league? And it will change from time to time, although I think for the last 20 years, it's really been LeBron James. But yeah. Where's Nikola Jokic on the tree right now?
Well, he's number one on the most unassuming, if you see him in the layup line, right? He is right up there with the best in the league. I mean, the guy can do everything, Grant, and he's such a team guy as well. And I think that he is so focused on one thing, and that is basketball. You saw that after the game. He just, even when they won the championship, just wanted to get in the locker room. Oh, wait, there's a parade? When parade? But no, he is certainly a game changer. And for a big man, he's one of those bigs that just comes along once in a generation, really.
Yeah.
And so I think you're watching greatness if you're a young person watching basketball right now, because you're not going to see another Jokic for a really long time.
Jerry, does he remind you of anyone that you've seen over your years of the NBA basketball?
He doesn't really. He is kind of a one of one.
Yeah.
The only player that plays somewhat like him is Sabonis, and of course he's much smaller and certainly not the player that the Joker is. But and it's just such an amazing thing, where a guy was the 41st pick in the draft the first couple of years. I mean, a lot of people weren't sure he could play. I remember the Kings playing one game where I don't think he scored early in his career.
That's
And,
right.
to go from that to being clearly, one of the two or three best players in the world at worst, it's just remarkable. Credit to his work ethic and his skill. Highly skilled guy. I mean, I was talking with Whitey Gleason this morning on the radio, and I just said, he's one of those guys, to the greats that his game would have translated back in the 70s, when it was a very physical, low post game, no 3-point shot, all that stuff. He would have been great then too with those guys.
I'll tell you what else I loved about this series are the best players on the respective teams, Jimmy Butler for Miami and Nikola Jokic for Denver. Whenever they talked to the media, it was never about them. It was always about the team. And when they did not play well, it was always me. I need to be better. Jimmy Butler particularly. Jimmy never wanted to be patted on the back. It was always about, hey, you know what? Our team's been doing this. Our team is about this. It's team, team, team. When they lost, Jimmy was like, if I played better, we would have won. So refreshing in this day and age for players. Ryan, I'll start with you on this. You're younger and maybe you have a different perspective than Jerry and I do. I just love that. I find that so damn refreshing because we live now very often in a me culture, and these guys are all about the team.
Yeah, Grant. In fact, it's not just words. Their words actually translate to actions. If you look at both of their games, they're such great distributors. They're leaders of their teams, and they're really responsible for facilitating everything that their teams do on offense, whether it's Jimmy driving and kicking, whether it's Jokic hitting those cutting lanes. So it is very refreshing to see that. And, some of the best basketball teams we think about, the best we've ever seen, they have players like this. They have teams like this where everybody gets a share of the pie. They distribute the ball well, and it's great basketball to watch.
Jerry, did that strike you at all, those two individuals, when how they conduct themselves in terms of how they deal with the media?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you pointed out, I think with Jimmy, obviously there again, a low draft pick that early in his career, nobody saw major stardom coming, but there it is. And I think those kind of guys appreciate it different, act different about it. But the one thing too I thought with Jimmy and was, he did have some ankle problems, but they tried to ask him about it. He never, would never accept it. No, I'm great. I'm 100%. No cop out, no excuses. Ask for, wanted, or even allowed. And those two guys. I mean, really, they need more of them. Need more guys like that in this league.
These franchises, will start with Denver. They still look like guys, and Ryan, they look like they're set up really well for the future when you look at the makeup of their team.
Yeah, they are set up really well, Grant. We'll see what happens, though, because it changes on a year-to-year basis. I think it's too early for a lot of these people to be talking about dynasties and things like that, because look how long it's taken Denver to get to the top of the hill. I mean, we're talking about a team that was under immense pressure to win a championship this year, or else there could have been a very drastic team on the floor next year. But they're certainly set up as good as anybody to make another run at it next year. And anytime you have Jokic, Murray, when those two are healthy, watch the heck out.
What do you think, Jer?
Yeah, that when the playoffs started, we talked about it, and especially myself saying, there's just nobody in the West that the Kings need to be scared of. Well, here's my problem. I'm scared of Denver right now. The Kings right now, if Denver's healthy and they don't lose key guys like Brown, they're a class ahead of everybody else in the West.
Correct.
And injuries always change things, but yeah, I guess my point would be the Kings aren't nearly good enough right now to beat those guys.
That's a great point. Miami, on the other hand, is they've got now age that is factoring in. That really plagued them this year with injuries. And I really think the makeup of their team finishing, 8th, getting into the play-in. So I think Miami's in a whole different situation, Jerry, when I look at their roster.
Oh, absolutely. Obviously Tyler Hero,
Yep.
they missed him to some degree. But I mean, it'd be hard to sit there if you're Pat Riley and Spoelstra thinking that we can win a championship with this roster. And I think, knowing Pat, that he knows that they're going to be trying to do things. There are already rumors of Damian Lillard and somebody like that. And but then again, if you started the playoffs over in the East, you'd still pick Milwaukee or Boston over 'em.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yes,
you
you
just would.
Yes, you would.
And so their situation is different, and they'll be good, and they'll be a winning team, but it'd be hard to see them any more than a 5th or 6th seed.
I think the next big news in the NBA, guys, will be the announcement from the NBA as it relates to John Morant. Adam Silver made it clear that they were going to wait until after the NBA Finals. And to me, that means waiting until after the championship parade that I believe is scheduled for Friday in Denver. And I would expect that decision. We have the draft coming up next week, so I don't know if the commissioner wants to take away from that, but I would think it would be better to do it right before the draft than right after the draft when everyone's talking about who picked who. But don't you think, guys, that will be coming down the pike next week?
I think it has to, and I'm with you. I think the sooner he does it, the better. I don't think it would really impact the draft. The draft is its own animal.
You're right.
Where teams, that to me, that's just different. I mean, John Morant's one player, and there'll be some discussion. Did he get enough penalty, enough suspension, all that? Everybody will have an opinion on that, but I think that'll be a 48-hour story at the most.
All right, if I told you guys, if I threw out the number 40, are you going under or over with the number of games he's suspended, Rhino?
I'm going to go under. I think I've heard between the 18 and 30 number tossed out there from a couple reports, but I think it's probably going to be in that range. I think 40 is a lot considering it is a second offense, but now with the talk of it possibly being a fake gun, you don't know if that's changed the investigation at all, whether they take a second look at that. But I think that either way we cut it, he's going to be missing significant time.
I don't know why it would take a month to have a report that it was a fake gun. That doesn't. Yeah, again, I understand that would maybe make a difference in some people's mind, but the act of stupidity in his behavior with repeated incidents, all that up. Jerry, under or over with 40?
I'd say under. I kind of agree with Ryan. I mean, I see 25, 30 game suspension. I mean, it is a second offense, and I think he will. The big thing, he'll be told probably 3 strikes, you may be out.
Yeah.
And so, and I mean, there's a point where it's one thing to punish Morant, and I get that, but I don't know if it's fair to punish Memphis and the Grizzlies and their fans, that sort of thing. And there's a point where you may be doing that.
Yeah, okay. I think one thing to look at here, I think a key to this suspension is, does it disqualify him from postseason awards? And I think it's going to be right around that number. It will disqualify him from postseason awards.
I think that's a great point. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, me either.
That's a nice punishment. You're right, because he is a guy that's going to garner, in all likelihood, postseason awards. If he's healthy, he's that good. Wow. All right, we had the draft next week, and then a few days after, we have free agency for the Sacramento Kings. Ryan, what's on your wish list? Not necessarily the name of a player, but the type of a player. And if you have a name, that's fine. But I'm talking about, what type of a player, what position would you think the Kings need to go after?
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously, everything kind of depends on Harrison Barnes, and I would like the Kings to make that decision sooner rather than later. But regardless of what Harrison does, we definitely need a 4/5, in my opinion, that can play with Domas or play on his own when Domas is out. I would love to see somebody that at times they could play together. and can defend, do a little bit of shot blocking, and just be athletic. They can guard multiple positions. I also want to see a backup point guard. Grant, you and I have talked
Yeah.
about this for a very long time. They need a veteran presence in the locker room and somebody that can come in and really steady that team when De'Aaron is on the bench. So I'm hoping they address those two positions.
Jerry, what do you think?
Well, I agree. I mean, I think they need a 4 or 5 guy that can fit with Domas. And of course, I have a guy that I like, Naz Reid, Minnesota. And shoot threes. He's very physical. Can guard centers as well as fours. He's a free agent. I mean, obviously Minnesota wants to keep him, as other teams do too. But anyway, that type of player, I think, is what the Kings need. And I think too, in my mind, they need a long defensive guard, preferably somebody that could be what you call a lead guard. It wouldn't have to be a total playmaker, but I think just defensively to play, better with Fox, that can really cover the tough guys better. Somebody, just use the name. It's not the player necessarily, but Derek White of Boston comes to mind. That kind of player that you can trot out there and guard ones, twos, and if you switch, he can cover threes, and he can get you in the offense, that sort of thing.
Father's Day coming up on Sunday. I'm doing a podcast on Friday about the impact that my dad had on me and my career and sports. Ryan, I've met your dad. Ryan's dad is a pilot. Jerry, I never met your dad, but what kind of impact did he have on you and your love for basketball or other sports? What was it like growing up? What influence did your dad have on you from a sports perspective?
Well, he helped me, certainly encouraged me to play sports. All those deals. We live in the country, so he would drive me and my brothers and neighbors sometime into town to play. My dad, I haven't talked about this a lot, but my dad was a professional boxer, and he really wanted me to be a fighter, and wanted me to fight Golden Gloves, and I went, and it's really one of his big disappointments when I just said I don't want to do this. I figured out, when I was 16 years old, that I was already, kind of a star in that area, and 3,000 people watch me play or something, as opposed to, I don't care who you are, getting hit in the head hurts. And I remember telling my mom, I said, I know Dad wants me to be a fighter, but man, I don't want to do this. She said, I'll take care of it. And so, but Dad was okay with it, because I was I was good in sports. And so, it was just like he came to admit, it's kind of his thing. It wasn't my thing, but, he'd always stay in the background, never, the thing that always struck me, he would always tell me when after games and stuff of how good my teammates were. They'd always tell me how good my teammates were, and I'd always say, I remember always ask moms, how come he never saying good about me? So all he does is brag to everybody else about you. Why? There's no reason why he should brag to you. So anyway, it's Ezra Reynolds. Like I said, man, I'm become more like him. Like he said, is late in life. He said, if it ain't in Orange County, Indiana, I don't need it. And, that's pretty much how I'm getting to be.
Yeah.
My dad had a really big impact. He really enforced in me that if you're going to do something, you have to do it right. And he was kind of an underdog. He played football. He was actually an offensive lineman. Grant, you met him. He's not a big guy.
Yep, right.
And he was all city. So anytime I wanted to do something, whether it was football, basketball, he put me through the drills. He put me in different situations. And if I made the team or if I went out for the team, you stayed on that team and you saw the season through, whether it was good or bad. And that's something that's carried on with me through life, regardless of sport or anything else that I'm doing.
Jerry, you met my dad. My dad, whenever he would come out to Sacramento or be at Madison Square Garden, he loved talking with you. It's funny you make that story because, like, when I used to go home, whether I was at Bowling Green or after, because when I walked out of that house to go to college in 1977, I never came back. I never lived there. That's it. I went to college in Ohio, and then after that worked in Ohio. And then I was home for a brief period of time when the radio station in Bowling Green was sold. But then I ended up getting a job in Decatur and then moved out to California. And it's funny that you say that, Jerry, because, whenever I used to go home, everybody knew my whole life story and everyone what I was doing. My dad used to tell everybody everything, Jerry.
Yeah, well, I really did enjoy your dad. What a knowledgeable sports fan he was.
Yep.
I mean, so we could get into, as I really get into sports trivia a lot, and I don't think there was ever anything he didn't know. So yeah, I always knew after getting talked to your dad, I kind of started to understand you better, which is very difficult.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, Jerry. But I'm grateful for my dad that he was able to help you tolerate me and understand me. Okay, thank you.
He did all he could. That's all I could ask for.
That's funny. I say that, we talk about the Kings, and I know Jerry will tell you this, Ryan. When you're with a franchise for as long as we were, the people that you work with become family, and their spouses, their kids, their moms, their dads. When people aren't doing well, when people are sick, when people are having difficult times, when kids are having problems in school. I mean, it really is like your family. And the reason why I bring this up is, Gary Gerald, he lost his dad at a fairly young age. And he always used to tell me and he knew my dad very well and would talk to my dad, often when he was around. And I always remember G-Man saying, just don't ever forget, you were so lucky that you still have your dad with you and he's still active. And Gary didn't have that. So that's why I like to always talk about Father's Day. I used to have my dad on my radio show in Sacramento the Friday before every Father's Day, talking about, all of the great, all the great people that he watched. Jerry, was your father, did he watch a lot of sports, or was it for him just about boxing?
No, of course, boxing was his first love, but no, he was always a lifetime Cubs fan, which is strange in French Lick, Indiana. But then I didn't realize until he told me, he said the reason it is because when he started following sports or baseball, the Cubs actually did spring training in French Lick, Indiana.
Oh, wow.
During World War II.
Wow.
The teams didn't travel as much, and the Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds both trained in French Lick in the early 40s. And so that he just started following them then. And of course, I'd always say, Dad, how can you be a Cubs fan and they never win? And he said, let me explain something to you, boy. I'm a Cubs fan and I'll always be a Cubs fan. So you just, that's all I want to talk about that.
How about that?
That was it.
How about that? Ryan, who's your dad's favorite teams?
Seattle Seahawks, 100%. He is a huge 12th man. He has been with them for a very, very long time, Steve Largent days. So we are big Seahawks fans in the house. And then basketball, Kings. He was at first game for both Arco arenas. So I always get to hear those stories.
Yeah, I've always thought, for the most part, and Jerry's an exception, you would root for the teams that your dad rooted for. Jerry, when you say that's surprising, a lot of the people where you lived in southern Indiana were Cardinal fans. Is that correct?
They'd be Cardinal or Cincinnati fans, one or the other. And, being the knothead that I've always been, my first major league game I saw was in an uncle lived in Chicago area. He took me and Dad to a Cubs game, and it was the Milwaukee Braves. And so I became a Milwaukee Braves fan. Eddie Matthews was my hero, and Hank Aaron was a rookie in 1954. And so, it's one of those deals that's like, typical of me at that time, had to be something different than my dad,
Yeah.
And so, of course, I turned on the Braves later when they moved to Atlanta. So, that ship sailed in.
Well, I'll release that podcast coming up on Friday, so I hope everybody can look forward to that. And hope you had a chance to listen to yesterday's podcast called 24 Hours, talking about, and Jerry, again, I go back to you on this. People always ask me what was the best part of being involved in pro sports for such a long time. And I always say, well, the relationships, the friendships, the people that you meet, the people that you still are friendly with years later. And Jerry, I always talk about this with you. I always thought one of the biggest joys for you in doing our job, particularly as a broadcaster, because you have a lot more time and less responsibilities leading up to the game, were the number of people that you would chat with, whether it was in the media room or on the bench before the game, that you would only see when we visited that city, whether it was their coach, their assistant coach, somebody like Sam Smith, okay, the great writer in Chicago. And you used to love going to Chicago and talking to him. And I always thought when you stopped doing this, that's one of the things that you would miss the most.
Well, it is, and it has been. I mean, I enjoy the games, but I don't. I miss that interaction, and of course, a lot of the people I was close to really are no longer involved in the league or have passed. Some of the coaches that I just thought the world of, the Jerry Sloans,
Yeah.
Phil. I mean, they're just so. My time has come and went, but there was a period, as you point out there, especially during the broadcasting, where I probably knew everybody in the league.
Yep.
And certainly knew the people I wanted to know, and it was just very enjoyable, and that applied to the Sacramento workers and employees as well. But that as you age, that's what you have is your memories, and like I say, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
I love Jerry going to Boston when we talked to Danny Ainge and we would just sit there and hoot and holler. Jerry, those I miss those visits maybe the most. The conversations we would have with Danny.
Oh yeah, Danny. I mean, he's one in a zillion, and we, like I say, he's one of my favorite guys I ever coached. Because he was definitely smarter than me and a terrific player. But it was like me, kind of like to have fun with people and joke around and jerk everybody's chain a little bit. So yeah, it was. Danny, as hadn't changed a bit.
No.
I mean, he's
No.
kind of like me. He just got older. He didn't change or mature. He just got older.
Ryan, I always tell the story. When Danny played with the Kings, they had a house out in Granite Bay, and Danny loved playing tennis too. And Jerry had been over to his house playing tennis with Danny. And I got to be friendly with Danny, and then he invited me over to play tennis. And Jerry goes, "I'm just going to give you one word of advice." I go, "What's that?" He goes, "Don't miss a line call. If it's close, okay, it goes in his favor. All right, don't call a ball that's close on him out, okay, or else you will regret it." So he goes, I'm just giving you that word of advice." That's how damn competitive Ainge was, even playing tennis, right, Jerry?
Oh, yeah, he did everything, 100%. That's who he was, one of the all-time great athletes, super competitor, as he proved during his basketball career. And like I always say, he got so he just loved beating the crap out of me, and he got so he'd beat the crap out of me left-handed. He just
Oh my gosh.
wanted to make, it's like, holy cow, trying to squeeze blood out of a turnip here. You're beating the crap out of me. Can you just ease up a little? But that wasn't Danny.
Ryan, the other thing about these conversations that you would have, I learned a lot, and I learned stories that I could not believe that I heard. Like Jerry loved Cotton Fitzsimmons, worked with Cotton. And whenever we went to Phoenix, I mean, I used to just love being in the neighborhood, being in the area where I could listen to Jerry and Cotton speak. And I learned a lot, things that happened previously in the NBA. And I would be listening to them talk about that. And I was like, wow. Because very often, particularly coaches now, they'll tell you things in these casual conversations that they would never tell the media or anyone else because there was a trust factor.
Sure.
So, Jerry, that was very true. I used to just love eavesdropping because I learned a lot. I mean, there was amazing some of the things you all would talk about.
Yeah, with Cotton, of course, we went back some of the same steps. He'd been a junior college coach in Moberly, Missouri, and then went to K-State, and it's very successful everywhere, and of course the pros. And so, he knew, we kind of went the same direction kind of thing. And so we had a lot of stories, from the minor league, so to speak. And we kind of spoke the same language, but of course he was a marvelous coach, had a lot of success in the NBA. But I always remember my last good memory about coaching against Cotton. I know we late in the year one year they were real good and we weren't, but we beat them at home. Uh, Brad Lowhouse had a career game like 29 points. He couldn't get 29 in 10 games normally, and we beat him. And Cotton came up after the game. He said, you better enjoy this one because there's going to be a big time payback in a couple of weeks. And in a couple of weeks, and we were on a 3-game winning streak, went into Phoenix, and we were down 63-28 at the half, I think it was. And Thunder Dan Marley and the boys was just punishing us, punishing us. And, so, yeah, I said, yeah, Cotton, I took you serious when you said it. You didn't have to do this.
See, Ryan, this was what it was like for me for decades, listening to stories like this, man. I had the life,
It's priceless, Grant. I mean, it's cool to see the brotherhood behind the scenes that all of you had. And I think you hit on that key word, trust, right?
Yep, trust.
If you were in earshot, he knew you were in earshot, but he trusted you. You're in that brotherhood and, you're not going to take that information anywhere else. So I love that.
Well, once you're in the league a number of years, it's like a fraternity, but it's also word spreads. And not only that, coaches move to other franchises and they tell other coaches about certain individuals. So like for me, being on TV and having a radio show and having a national platform when I filled in for Romy, right. I mean, I would talk to a lot of coaches on opposing teams. And even if I had not met them, but I was around Jerry or around Vladi and Peja, who knew a lot of people, and we would chat, they just didn't have a problem saying certain things around me. And I do think, Jerry, this, trust is the most important thing when you're in professional sports. I mean, if people don't trust you, they're not telling you a damn thing.
No, it starts right there. I always felt like, when I was involved in trades or work like that, talking to other scouts or GMs, they knew that they could tell me things that would never get to the media.
That's right.
And I knew the same thing about them. And, and so you could have legitimate conversations with people about important stuff. And, but it does. I mean, I think that's where it starts. I always said the only thing for me was, during the games with coaches, Kings coaches, I always told people, they'd say, you don't seem to criticize. I said, I'm not going to criticize coach. I'm a homer. I want them to do well. And they're my friends. So if you're looking for somebody to criticize coach, you need to go somewhere else. I ain't going to do it. That's just, and I'd feel the same way now. I will never apologize for that.
Yeah, I got you. I understand completely. I mean, the reality is, Ryan, I can't even begin to tell you how many times Jerry said to me or I said to him in these conversations, about trust, the things that we saw. And I would say, Jerry, can you imagine if the fans knew this? And Jerry would go, oh boy. Or, really, you know what I mean? Like there were so many things that we saw and heard that we would say, I'd go, Jerry, can you imagine if the fans knew this, if they knew the real story? I mean, we would say that all the time to each other.
Well, things we talked about, people always say, Jerry ought to write another book, and I said, oh yeah, I could write Reynolds Remembers Everything as opposed to Reynolds Remembers. And I said, the only problem was I would have to move up in the hills and get a shotgun on my lap and a couple of dogs, guard dogs.
Yeah.
Or it would be published. It would be published on Jerry's last breath. That's when the book would be published.
Well, that's why there won't be one.
Reynolds Remembers Everything. By the way, that would be several hundred pages, Rhino. Okay.
Yeah, I believe it.
Right. Oh my God. And there would be a lot of people shaking in their boots on Reynolds Remembers Everything. Okay.
Oh yeah, there'd be a lot of people calling me before the book is published. I know that, but it's not going to happen because, like I say, it'd probably be about the thickness of the Bible. So I won't go there.
Hey, I want to tell everyone about Bennett's, Roseville, Sacramento, and very soon in Rockland. They're prime seafood and steaks. They're great. Love it. Just get the Bennett's and check out their menu, bennettsrestaurants.com. That's bennettsrestaurants.com. Or go in and visit one of their 2 locations, and again, coming to Rockland soon. That's Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Guys, I've really enjoyed this season. And Jerry, I want to give you a special thank you to joining us each and every Wednesday during the season. And I really want to extend a real pat on the back for helping us out on some of the post-game shows. That was a big addition for us. We had thousands of people watching a lot of those shows. And so I want to say thank you, Jerry. Really appreciate that. And,
well, thank you. You and Ryan, I really did enjoy it. I mean, it really was a lot of fun for me, and hopefully next year, if mentally I'm still capable, I'd love to do it again. So we'll just wait and see.
And your stipend, I think, was mailed a couple of months ago. You know how long the Postal Service takes, so I'm hoping that gets to your Roseville location within a couple of years. Okay.
Well, the LeBron commercials makes up for it. So, so we're good. We're good.
We're good. Oh my gosh! I'll tell you, Ryan, that was one of the funniest, most memorable times in all the years I've known Jerry when we did the LeBron commercial for Nike. And we thought we were just getting one check, and it was not much. It was less than $1,000, I think, and we got it. And then I got a call one day from Jerry, and he go, "Hey, did you get something from the commercial? Did you get another check?" And I'm like, "No." And he goes, "Well, you ought to go run down and check out your mailbox." And I did. And then 2 days later, I'd call Jerry. I go, "Jerry, have you been to your mailbox yet?" And we literally, we were getting checks. We got, I don't know, 4, 5, 6. And the only bad thing was that commercial only ran for a couple of days, and it ran the weekend before the first game. And the first time I saw it was on the NFL games. So Nike flooded the NFL games. So we were watching our commercials, watching NFL football. But then after the first game, it wasn't relevant anymore because it was a buildup to his first game in the NBA. And Jerry was like, Jerry and I, just our luck. We do a freaking commercial that only runs for a week,
Yeah. They should do a nostalgia thing. I mean, LeBron should be his last year coming up. They should really run the first year.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, my goodness. I think, so probably won't.
Ryan, Jerry and I spent the whole day at Arco with nobody there, basically, except for, I think, 50 fans, and they moved them around a little bit, but we weren't involved in that. LeBron wasn't there. Nobody else in the commercial was there. And we were there. And then after that, the only part that they used of Jerry and I that we were there all day was the part that we're actually on camera. Okay. We're on camera. You can go look up the commercial.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
It's LeBron James pressure commercial. And a couple of weeks later, they called me up and they go, "Listen, we need you to go to a studio in downtown Sacramento and voice over the commercial." I said, "No problem." And again, so we were there from early in the morning until the end of the day doing all kinds of stuff. And they only ended up using the part where we're actually on camera that they shot that day. Isn't that amazing, Jerry, how that worked?
Yeah, and that's why we got as much money as we did by, if you're on camera, you have a speaking part on camera.
Yep.
That, that's it was an amazing experience. Like you said, you had a bunch of extras in there moving around. So when it was played, it looked like the building was full. And, so it was a neat experience. And, like I say, it goes into the top of my memory bank. But like I say, they should run it again. That's all I'm saying.
I'll tell you, as somebody growing up, when, I was, I think, first year of college when LeBron came into the league, everybody remembers that commercial. That was such an important commercial for the exact reason that you said, Grant. It was the lead up to the first game of LeBron, and he lived up to that hype. I mean, it's almost like it bled into the first game.
Yeah.
And he comes out and has that big first quarter. But I would say that's one of the most important Nike commercials, LeBron James commercials they've ever had.
Well, we enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and we enjoyed doing this. Jerry, happy Father's Day. Rhino, happy Father's Day. Thank you to both of you guys, man. Really have enjoyed this.
Thank you, and look forward to next year.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Napes. Thank you, Jerry.
See you guys. Take care. And I want to say thank you to everyone else, and I want to say thank you to New Works Plumbing of Sacramento, locally owned for over 20 years. New Works has a fix for you. Go to sackserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. That's New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. And thank you for joining us during these segments. If you would not mind, give us a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so, and we would appreciate that. Thanks very much for being right here on If You Don't Like That. So long, everybody.